Well, it's basic biology. The key to life is keeping blood flowing through your body, and the secret to doing that on a grand scale is keeping blood supplies flowing through the country. But what you may not be aware of is that Australia has a group of volunteer motorcyclists all over the country who transport blood and other medical supplies to and from wherever they are needed. And they do this vital job for nix, for nothing, for free. The organisation that makes this happen is Blood Bikes Australia. And Blood Bikes Australia is now set up in the Darling Downs. But if you're a motorcyclist, the organisation could do with your help if you're keen for an excuse to go for a ride. Peter Davis started Blood Bikes Australia back in 2019 after hearing about the organisation and what they were doing in the UK and Ireland. And he's with me in the studio after a ride up the hill that I don't think he regrets. He seems all right. He's thawed out now. Peter, good morning and welcome.
G'day, David. Hello, everybody. How you going?
Appreciate the lengths you've gone to for a face-to-face chat. It's always good.
Oh, any excuse to go for a ride, mate.
Indeed. And tell me about that. So that's, we've been talking off air, that's essentially the reason you got involved in this. Tell me how you cottoned on to what was happening overseas.
Well, the thing is, a mate of mine did it overseas, and I, as a motorbike rider, you're always thinking, it's a very individual thing. So you're sort of looking for an excuse to go for a ride. It's a very individual thing. So I thought, well, what a great excuse to go for a ride and do some good at the same time. So that's when I started Blood Bikes in Brisbane with the Marta, just me, Yep. But then through getting the word getting around, I discovered that it's a very common thing for motorcyclists to like to have an excuse to go for a ride.
Yep.
And a lot of bikes spend far too much time in the garage, and then the Blood Bikes has given so many. Well, we've got 500 volunteers on the books Australia-wide, an excuse to go for a ride.
That's brilliant.
And so it's, we do it all for free. We're not a charity. We look after all our own expenses, and it's just it's a tremendous. I can't tell you how good it feels to do it. We're not heroes. We're not trying to be heroes. We're just trying to help out.
Yep.
But it feels good to do it.
Absolutely. So tell me though, if before Blood Bikes Australia started up, who blood's always needed to be transported around? Who would do this, and how would it be done?
Well, basically, we offer a last resort service. Australia has a very good pathology courier system right throughout Australia.
Yep.
However, there's always situations where a courier is not available or can't get a sample or in the right timing to a particular location. So we offer a last resort service. Now, that last resort service previously would have been get a cab, a taxi. Now, nothing wrong with taxis, but the trouble is, that takes a lot of money out of the healthcare system.
Yeah.
As well, all of our blood bike riders are qualified to transport medical supplies. So instead of giving it to a cab driver that has no qualifications, you're giving it to a qualified person. But the main thing is just to try to keep more money in the system. But in addition to that, by using the motorcycle, so often, the greatest example I can use is that if I'm going from my place to the Marta Hospital in Brisbane, I live at Springfield Lakes, right?
Yep.
If I was doing that in a car during peak hour, that would take me an hour.
Right.
In a bike, it takes me 30 minutes.
Right, okay. Gotcha.
Because I can lane filter. I can legally lane filter, and that's where that gives the motorcycle the advantage in when it's time critical. And quite often there's blood tests that are taken, especially for suspected heart attacks. That blood's got to be tested within 2 hours of being taken.
Right, okay.
And so it is quite time critical.
Yep. So that alone, I guess, is the big thing. So, even if you say your last resort, but probably first port of call if it is that time critical during peak hour and that sort of thing.
Exactly. And like, what's really interesting is the sort of transports that we're doing is changing all the time. One of the things we do for for Toowoomba-based hospital quite regularly is the transport of medicines.
Right, okay.
Certain medicines they may at the pharmacy at Toowoomba-based hospital they might run out of, and we've done runs from the Sunshine Coast University Hospital to Toowoomba Hospital, or Gold Coast Hospital to Toowoomba Hospital.
Wow.
Because it's a matter of certain specific drugs or medicines may not be available at that time. So we usually set up a relay there with and we meet halfway, and then a Darling Downs rider will come and pick it up from there.
Yeah.
And vice versa, Toowoomba to Esk Hospital, Toowoomba to Gatton Hospital. I mean, their supply of pharmaceuticals is a lot smaller than the Toowoomba-based hospital.
Yeah.
So we'll quite often take some medicines down that way as well.
Makes sense. And the relay idea is perfect as well. So you share
and we
the
get
cost.
more riders get an excuse to go for a ride.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. Everybody wins. Ticks all the boxes. So at the moment, you're on a drive for more volunteers. You wanted to set up volunteers based right across the region. So Dalby, further out west, Tara, Oakey, wherever you can get them.
Well, recently one of our volunteers went on a function at Miles with it was a police motorcyclist, and it was sort of a special thing at Miles, and one of the things that really came into focus is the fact that the demand for our services is needed from time to time everywhere.
Yep.
Now, we have volunteers in Cairns, Townsville, Mackay, Longreach, Harvey Bay, Gladstone, but it would be really great to have, and my aim is to have basically my dream is to have the whole of Australia be able to be serviced by a blood biker.
Yeah,
no matter
absolutely.
where you are. Doesn't matter if you're at Corpy. It doesn't matter if you're a Mitchell.
It may not be as often that you're called on, but to actually be on standby.
We're
to
a
be
last
there.
resort service. So, I mean, yes, the thing, when there was a stage when I was the only blood biker, I went a month without getting a call.
Right, okay.
And that doesn't so much happen now, but we typically, Australia-wide, we do about 40 runs a week.
Right, okay.
About 4,000 to 5,000 Ks in all. So we've done just over, I think it's 5,160 since I started.
Gee.
But when you work it out, that's nearly 4 years.
Yeah.
300 qualified volunteers.
Yeah.
But the point is that we have sort of an app type thing that means that it's sort of like Uber for blood bikers.
Well, I was going to ask you how it worked. Is there still one person who takes all the calls, or do you just distribute numbers? But it's a bit more sophisticated than that.
Well, in UK they have these controllers that takes a call from the hospitals, but I'm not a big fan of committees and infrastructure and stuff like that. And so I wanted to do it all online and give the control of availability to the volunteer.
Absolutely.
They decide when they want to be available and when they're not. So through one of our volunteers in Geelong, we've developed basically what is an app. And basically it's just like Uber. If you're available, it will show up, and the healthcare providers have a link.
Yep.
And they can see who's available. And they can zoom in and zoom out.
Yeah.
And they can allocate the job and the details of the job directly to that person.
That's brilliant. That's great.
Yeah, it's really good.
Another example of, just really quickly, of how if you get enough volunteers, you find the right skill set you need within those volunteers. So this fella from Geelong,
and that just keeps on. It's like without being too hippie seaweed. It's sort of it's like the universe is sort of looking after it.
It's answering. It's answering your calls. Just really, really quickly, I've got in 30 seconds. If people are listening and they'd like to sign on, what do they do?
Look, the best bet is to go to our website. That's bloodbikesaustralia.com.au. Go to the contacts there, and you can see an email. You can see my email address and email me directly. Or the local coordinator for the Darling Downs is Cameron Scarville. You'll see his email as well. Drop us an email, and then we'll let you know all the details of how you can become a Blood Bikes Australia volunteer. And we'd love to have you on board.